Egan is here with us. Phil, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Are you excited about this transfer window as somebody who thinks that maybe, you might be a supporter of the best club in the world?
Yeah, it's always interesting. I mean, it seems to be a thing now where you have to try and win the transfer window as well. We're not far off getting a trophy for that. Where you think back to last season, remember we did a transfer deadline day special?
Yes.
Spurs, it looked like Spurs won the transfer deadline day when they signed Ndombele. Well, obviously they had Lo Celso was in as well, and it was like Spurs could break into the top two. Didn't really work out that way. Pochettino
Who did win the transfer window last year?
Well, I think you have to go to the January transfer window and the Bruno Fernandes deal. I mean, that's the signing of the season, surely.
Yeah, it does seem that, now, what did even happen last summer? I'm just trying to make the point that last summer was actually full of disastrous moves. You had very big moves on the continent with Hazard and Griezmann and João Felix, but as you say, it was Tanguy and Ndombele was the big Premier League signing last summer. So the trophy is there for the taking, I think.
João Felix worked out. That's the most successful, and even then it's not super successful just yet. You know it's going to be successful, right? I have faith in that one working out, but the others, Hazard was good but got injured, and you'd say Griezmann's been a failure, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you would say, and also the two biggest transfers from the Premier League's perspective last year were Harry Maguire with the 78.3 million quid, and then you had Nicolas Pepe for 72 million quid. Just looking at the stats here with Rodri in third in terms of money spent. But yeah, as you said, the other ones, João Felix potentially the best of the three. Griezmann is definitely still kind of the jury's still out on that one, and kind of the same on Hazard, really. I'm not sure what Phil thinks.
Yeah, well, Hazard unfortunately just been injured the whole time, so it's hard to judge him on that. And he's pretty much said it's been the worst season of his career. So yeah, he's got to hit the ground running for next season. I mean, we know how good he is.
Yeah.
But we always wondered, was he good enough to play for Real Madrid? Because there was spells at Chelsea where he was sensational, but there was also spells where it was almost like he downed tools and he just wasn't in the mood. But then when he turned it on, he was class. So that's why he got his move. So Real Madrid, you have to do it every week, though.
Yeah, I think he's in a good situation there. It's a good scenario for them heading into next season. So I think that he is going to be a success there. But let's get into this one today. So mixed signals about Manchester United. The latest state of play is apparently that their interest in Jack Grealish has cooled a little bit since Villa's Premier League survival. That's resulted in the club putting a minimum price tag of 80 million sterling on their captain. Manchester United are now apparently focused on bringing Jadon Sancho. Dortmund want 110 million for him. The German club are reported to want the deal done before they start pre-season on the 10th of August. We all want this deal done before Borussia Dortmund start, because otherwise it'll roll on all the way through up to the last moment, and eventually Man United will end up paying exactly what they were going to pay in the first place. Those updates are coming from Sky Sports News. Miguel Delaney has it in the back of the London Independent today that actually they might do both. Phil, what's your overall take? Does it end with Man United paying 110 million on August the 9th?
Yeah, well, United love a good transfer saga, and it usually goes down to the wire, and eventually, like you said, they pay what they were meant to pay earlier in the summer. So the sooner you get it done. In terms of if you could pick one, you go for Sancho. If you can get two, great. But I actually think the way United are set up, and it looks like Solskjaer is going for that 4-2-3-1 formation, so Sancho slots into that. I think actually United could do with somebody in central midfield, but you look at the team that started against Leicester the other day. Matic played there. Matic is a good footballer and sometimes can be quite good, but you need somebody that's going to be able to do it for the whole season. There's definitely a role in that midfield I see for someone like Declan Rice. Now, I don't know if they can get Declan Rice away from West Ham, but I would imagine they wouldn't have to pay as much for Declan Rice as they would for Jack Grealish. With Villa can obviously ask for huge money for Grealish because, let's be honest, you know yourself, Villa are not going to be able to reinvest that money by signing an unbelievable player to say, right, Jack Grealish is gone, let's bring in someone just as good as him. They're going to have to reinvest it. Now, thankfully, they've got rid of their sporting director, Jesus Garcia Pitarch, because some of the deals they did last summer were questionable. Actually, the deals that worked out better for them, looked like they would. Tom Heaton obviously got injured. Tyrone Mings, Dean Smith was the one that pretty much got those deals done. So Villa needed a good sporting director, that if they do get good money for Jack Grealish, that they can reinvest it properly. Because without Grealish, obviously Villa wouldn't have stayed up. So that's why Villa have to ask for huge money, because they're obviously going to lose their captain, their best player. This is a player that they just won't be able to replace.
Is Sancho a guaranteed hit?
Yeah, definitely. You can play him on the right-hand side of that 4-2-3-1. Obviously, if United are going to compete and try and push on, it's one thing finishing in the top 4 when you can pretty much play a reserve team for Europa League. But Solskjaer said it himself after the game against Leicester. You got to go strong in Premier League and Champions League, so you need a big squad. And Mason Greenwood has changed things maybe, where United probably were thinking, do they need a striker? Like Harry Kane was a striker that was linked with them. Raul Jimenez maybe as well, but Greenwood's there as well. You can move all these players around. Sancho plays on the right wing. Obviously, Rashford has been playing on the left. Martial has played on the left, but he's actually been so much better now playing through the centre. You can move all these players around, but Sancho, he goes straight into that team, and he's quality. Obviously, he's an England international. And
young
also as well, it gives you a nice balance there, because Wan-Bissaka, a brilliant defender, obviously still has to work on going forward. But if you have Sancho, you can basically say to Sancho, you stay up there, and Wan-Bissaka's that good at defending, he'll cover you, and it takes the pressure off Wan-Bissaka having to go forward as much, because every time he goes forward, you look at him, he looks a little bit awkward. And
so you're saying they just spend the money, get the deal done, get him in pre-season training, make everybody happy. Don't make the same mistakes that you made with Harry Maguire last year, where it actually took Harry Maguire a little while to settle in, and when he did settle in, he was decent.
Yeah, but actually, I know you talked about this earlier in the week with Daniel Harris about Lindelof and Maguire. Lindelof gets a lot of stick, but actually, looking at that game the other day, Lindelof was the better defender. Harry Maguire's positioning sometimes is not great. Like, if you're we're talking about attacking players that United need to get, but they need another centre half, whether it's to replace Lindelof or Maguire. David De Gea, there's going to be conversations again next season. If they stick with him, we're still going to be having conversations. Do United need to upgrade? And I still think left back is a position that they have to upgrade. Luke Shaw is solid, but obviously got an injury. Is he going to bring it to that next level? I'm not sure.
What about Chris Smalling coming back, having restored some faith and credibility and understood that life is better when you get away and get some first team? Is there a possibility he goes back into the squad, into the setup, and actually would that not be the worst thing that ever happened?
It's certainly a squad player, sure, but he's not going to break into that first 11. But as I said, you do need squad players around. You need to have a big competitive squad if you're going to try and obviously not only.
And so he's free, right?
Yeah.
You can then not spend the money on your centre backs. That might be an earmarked amount of money on a Declan Rice figure, who you can then get Declan Rice, Jadon Sancho, and Jack Grealish.
Well, obviously the Declan Rice situation as well would be that not only can he play centre midfield, obviously he can slot in as a centre half as well. So maybe that's something they would look at, that he has that versatility. That I think we obviously, when we had heard about Declan Rice breaking into the West Ham team as Irish fans at the time, we were seeing him as a centre half, and then obviously didn't go great for him at the very start when he played for West Ham. I remember a Newcastle game where he gave a goal away, but then he played in central midfield, and that's where he plays for England now as well. But he
got much better. Yeah. Give me legitimacy ratings on the Sancho deal.
I think the Sancho deal is the one that they want. I think if they get Sancho done, if that was the only deal United got done this summer, I think they would be very happy. So
legitimacy rating?
I'm going to say the chances of this happening, I'm going to say 8 out of 10.
Okay, and the chances of Grealish happening, say that 8 out of 10 happens, does Grealish not happen in your view?
I have a feeling Villa are going to price clubs out of Jack Grealish, and that might, obviously that's probably what Villa want, because then they have their captain for next season. And who could he go to? United are the only team that could afford him, or Manchester City, but I don't really see him fitting into the City team. Spurs, have they got that kind of money?
I think they do, yeah. So give me a legitimacy rating for, that's a low, what are you giving him?
Yeah, I'm kind of going with, I'm down at 5 or 6 with Grealish. Okay. And then if Sancho happens, I'm probably dropping it to a 3 or a 4.
Jesse Lingard has taken to Instagram. He starts by quoting Michael Jackson. Jesse, there's a thing called Netflix. You should look up a documentary about Michael Jackson just to see if you really want to be quoting Michael Jackson after you've watched that documentary. That's all I'd say about that. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. This season's been difficult for so many reasons. I lost who I was as a player and person, but I never wanted to give up. I knew who I really was on and off the pitch and knew that having been there before, I could get there again. This meant working harder than I've ever done before and trusting in those around me, and they knew how to best help me achieve that. I know the fans have been frustrated, but in all this time, my love for this club and everyone connected to it has never left me. This team, this club is my family. I will continue to keep working harder than ever to help this team achieve its goals. I ain't going nowhere because you're paying me too much money. That's what that says to me, Phil.
27-year-old Jesse Lingard, in all seriousness though, it hasn't been a good season for him, and he gets a lot of stick, but it just shows that a lot of these players, we don't know what's going on in their personal life, and he's had his struggles off the pitch. So it was nice to see him score that goal set up by Kasper Schmeichel the other day, and you could see Jesse Lingard is a popular player in the United dressing room, but if you were to ask me, we're talking about the likes of Jadon Sancho and Jack Grealish and Declan Rice. If United are trying to push on to challenge and break into that top two, there's no place for Jesse Lingard first of all in the starting 11, but even in the squad. And maybe it's time for him to go to a different club and try and start fresh somewhere. If you'd asked me maybe a few months ago, I would have thought he's nailed on to go to Everton, but Everton finished the season so badly under Ancelotti that I don't know. I'm thinking maybe a club like Southampton, where they've a really good coach in Ralph Hasenhüttl. They've a very definitive style of play. He has high energy. That would suit the way Southampton play. I would have said maybe even a club like Brighton, but maybe Adam Lallana has stolen a march by getting in there first.
Okay, so a legitimacy rating. Rate the chances of him still being at Manchester United at the end of the transfer window.
Oh, I don't think he will. I think Jesse Lingard will be out of Manchester United. So the chance of being at United.
Would you give him away for nothing if you're United?
No, I think they'll get a little bit of money for him, but I wouldn't imagine it'll be much. It'll obviously be in double figures or whatever.
Bournemouth are gone, otherwise they would have paid 18 million for him. Corriere dello Sport report that Wolves have put an €80 million price tag on Raúl Jiménez amid interest from Manchester United and Juventus. He is under contract until 2023. If Wolves don't start selling their players, can they actually become a Champions League side?
Yeah, I was disappointed with the way it finished for them, because at the start, when we restarted the season, they were in pole position to get a Champions League place if you looked at their fixtures, but they somehow managed to lose to Arsenal. That surprised a lot of people, that Arsenal went to Molineux on that Saturday and won 2-0, and then they lost the next game to Sheffield United, so that was them pretty much done and dusted. The problem with Wolves, to get to the next level, they play as a counter-attack team, which is very effective, and obviously you've added Adama Traore in there, and they've obviously signed Podence as well from Olympiacos, so they have really good players that can play in the break, but then they come unstuck against teams that park the bus and they can't break them down, and that's going to be a problem unless they change their way. But if you look at the season they've had...
Michael Jackson quote.
Yeah, I've definitely gone for... yeah. But I think if they were to keep hold of their players to develop into a better team, they're going to have to start playing a different way.
I think that Wolves are always going to be a selling club, because that's the whole point, isn't it? When you've got a super agent in the background, he needs the throughput of players. That doesn't mean that they won't use that money to buy superstars, because he has superstars on his books, so that's what we're going to see, right?
Yeah, and they tend to do quite well in the transfer market. I mentioned Podence, they got him from Olympiacos, and already like the bits we saw of him at the end of the season, he's a perfect player for counter-attack, technically very good, quick, so that's what they try and do. They try and hit you on the break, and that's why they've had so much success against teams like, say, they did the double over Manchester City. Adama Traore, you wonder would other clubs have a look at him, but yeah, Adama Traore did some damage to City in both the home game and the away game, because as I said, they're so well coached and so well set up with that three at the back, and obviously the two wing backs can tuck in and make it a five, and then when they break, they're explosive. But as I said, I don't know if that's going to get them into the top four, because they're going to have to try and adapt and change the way they play a little bit.
Let's talk some Willian, who's been really good this season for Chelsea. Kia Joorabchian has been talking to TalkSport, that's his agent. Apparently Willian wants a 3-year deal. Chelsea are offering a 2-year deal, and he's like, no, I want 3 years, so let's go. But there might have been some change of heart just recently, as his form has been good and he's getting on well with Frankie Lampard. I don't think he's done a U-turn or any kind of turn, says Joorabchian. We had two very big offers. one from MLS, which required him to move on the 1st of July, but he's always been in the same mode, saying, I want to finish the season, including qualifying for the Champions League at Chelsea, and the day after the season is finished, I will make my decision. He has 2 concrete offers from Premier Leagues on the table, from Premier League clubs on the table. He has an MLS offer on the table, which is very big, very big, very excellent offer. He's got 2 other offers in Europe, so Willian is in a very good position, the best position. Will Willian be a Premier League player next season? How much of a loss would he be to Chelsea, Phil?
I don't think he'd be as big a loss as maybe he would have been in previous seasons, because you look at what they're doing. Chelsea have obviously brought in, well, they have Pulisic, they obviously have Ziyech coming in. It looks like they're going to get Havertz as well, Timo Werner. So they've all this attacking talent that they're going to have. And if you look at what their first 11 could look like in attack, especially, I don't think Willian gets into the team. He'd be a brilliant squad player to have, but he commands a decent wage, and I'd say there was a few Premier League clubs rubbing their hands at the thoughts of being able to get him on a free transfer. Obviously linked with Arsenal. With
he should go to Spurs, Phil.
Well, he was meant to go to Spurs, wasn't he?
He's got a good relationship with Jose Mourinho, his old friend, is what he calls him. This would be an absolute steal for any Premier League club who could get their hands on Willian. It would be the perfect signing for Everton, except for the fact that they probably might fall for Jesse Lingard at some point this summer. I think this is very convenient for Spurs. The MLS is being pushed, because if he goes to one of their rivals, it could be the sort of thing that bites them in the ass with like a winning goal at some point later on this year. But there's not a prayer he gets into that Chelsea attack is the only thing. So they need to do something with him. I think he'd be a fantastic signing for Spurs.
Yeah, like I said, Spurs or Arsenal. I mean, they're the 2 clubs, and obviously, if you look at the geography of it, obviously he doesn't have to move. So that could appeal to him. But I think he's actually going to stay at Chelsea, to be honest. I think Keir option, he's thinking cup final this weekend. Do you know what I'll do? I'll go on radio and I think Willian, because there was talk on Monday that this could be all done and dusted by the end of the week, that this new deal could be agreed. And Keir is probably thinking, no, this isn't good. We need to get a bit more money for our player here. So in terms of a wage. So let's go on radio and try and fight his corner.
Legitimacy, 10 out of 10 that he's going to be a Chelsea player, 9 out of 10 he's going to be a Chelsea player?
I think he'll stay with Chelsea, and he'll be a bit par player, but a great option to have though.
Out of 10?
Oh, I'll go 9.
Okay. Sticking with Chelsea, reports say Kai Havertz deal could be done by next week. How close are Chelsea to becoming title contenders? Could they though? Phil, could they do an Aston Villa on it by changing too much too soon after Lampard's young guns impressed so much this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about them changing too much. I think that the worry for Chelsea though is they've got an issue at the back. I think ideally Chelsea would play a 4-3-3, and looking at the players they bring in, so say Havertz comes in, you could play Havertz in the front 3 or the midfield 3, maybe the midfield 3, because if N'Golo Kante's there, obviously we know how good he is. Now he's had a few injury worries, and then you're looking at maybe Mason Mount or Mateo Kovacic as part of that 3. Then you're looking at maybe Pulisic on the left, Werner down the middle, and Ziyech then on the right-hand side. But you got to there's talk of Ben Chilwell. That sorts out your problem at left back. If you want to play 4 at the back, then he's got good options, obviously, as a right back. You've got Reece James, and you've also got Azpilicueta. Centre half is an issue, though. Antonio Rudiger looked like he was the best centre half at Chelsea. His confidence seems to have gone. I'd say the form of the goalkeeper probably has a bit to do with that, because if you're
the goalkeeper, that can be fixed though.
Absolutely, and it looks like Kepa's done, because if you're getting dropped for Willy Caballero for the final day of the season, and then you'd imagine Caballero's going to start the cup final, that pretty much signals you're done and dusted. The world's most expensive goalkeeper, and his confidence looks shot. Now, I mean, does Frank Lampard stick with him and say, look, we'll start fresh? But if he has all this attacking talent and he's a goalkeeper he can't trust, then they're not going to win the league.
Just on that, Phil, like they've finished 33 goals behind Manchester City this season. Like the firepower has been necessary. I know it happened during the season, but I don't think we quite realised, or we quite gave the appreciation to Timo Werner just how spectacular a signing this actually is for Chelsea. They have nobody really who could go after the Golden Boot last season. As good as Tammy Abraham has been, they've got
Has he been that good though? Tammy Abraham hit the ground running, where he scored that hat-trick against Wolves. So he scored 15 Premier League goals. 7 of them came before the end of September.
But he's been good. He's been grand.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to be the guy who leads the line forever. Like, we've got a guy in Werner now at Chelsea who's got the possibility to be at Aubameyang levels, to be the best number 9 in the league, to take over from the crown from Aguero, which is kind of, you could debate it at the moment, who is the best number 9 in the league. Werner is going to be that guy, I think. And what an unbelievable signing. Like, you add Havertz to what they already have. Like, they can potentially reach Liverpool levels of 80-something goals next season.
Okay, let's move on to City very quickly. City have made Valencia's Spanish winger Ferran Torres, age 20, their number 1 target during the window, according to ESPN. And AS are reporting that Lazio are in negotiations to sign David Silva. How much will Silva be missed at the Etihad? And what do we know about Torres? Is this enough to bridge that 18-point gap?
Well, Torres is your typical Manchester City player. You can just see how he fits in. He's, a pacey right winger. You could play him on the left as well, and obviously technically very good. So, you could see exactly where he fits into a Manchester City team. In terms of David Silva, there's been this kind of debate going around about David Silva. Was he underappreciated? I don't think he was. He just played in a really good Manchester City team. So, he keeps the well-oiled machine going, because is there going to be I'm thinking of, is there a better player, or has there been a better player with a better first touch in the Premier League than David Silva? And I often used to hear Brian Kerr refer to him
Berbatov.
playing. Well, Berbatov, yeah, but I'm talking, obviously Silva has just finished his Premier League career now, but in the last decade.
Zola had a good first touch.
Zola had a good first touch, but David Silva, as Brian Kerr used to refer to him, like, he looked like he was playing in his slippers at times, where he just going around nonchalantly, just stroking it around, but his first touch was exquisite. Still is, by the way, and whoever signs him is going to have an excellent player.
So he will be missed?
He will be missed, yeah, because also the experience he brings. Vincent Kompany has been missed, even though his form wasn't as good for the last few seasons, but they've lacked that leadership at the back, and that's, again, City lost 9 games in the league this season. Why did they lose so many games with such quality? The way I look at it, at the start of every season, Manchester City have all the trophies. It's up to the other teams to take them off them, because City...
Liverpool do now, Phil. I mean, yeah, stop trying to put some false pressure on City because you're a Liverpool fan. No. Liverpool have them now.
Look at the resources that Manchester City have. Well, they should be winning the league. Well. They should be winning the league every year.
I mean, now Liverpool should. They were like so far ahead. If Liverpool don't win the league next season, it's a disaster, because they're 18 points clear of their nearest rival this year. That's like... I see what you're doing. You're getting your retaliation in first. It's old school, Phil. I like it. It's proper GAA talk.
You think about what City are going to do this summer, right? They're going to go out and spend...
a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah, they're going to go out and sign a few more players. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. And I don't think Liverpool are going to be in that position to do it. Klopp has already talked about how, yeah, it's all well and good being in the Champions League, but if there's no crowds at these games, what's the revenue actually going to be like? Is it going to be...
Gerard's right in what he's saying, I think. The idea of what the recruitment's going to be this year. Like, you look at the Ferran Torres thing, it's not going to get anybody afraid. It's not going to get Jurgen Klopp giving him a sleepless night or anything like that. Surely the net happening at Manchester City this year is going to be a loss. When you look at Silva go out the gap, and you look at Fernandinho getting older, like, do they not need to sign another central midfielder at this point? Like, Torres isn't even an out-and-out winger. He's played in a 4-4-2 at Valencia this season. If anything, he could be converted into a right wing back by Pep Guardiola, if not a winger. Like, I just don't know if they have enough round pegs for the round holes.
I'd be very surprised if they don't sign more players. Like, the left back issue is something that hasn't gone away, where Mendy was obviously signed for big money from Monaco and has had injury problems. And also, if you think back to the night that Liverpool were crowned champions, Mendy, he was at fault against Chelsea. So he's played Zinchenko there as well, but they're just, when it comes to the real crunch games, those lads get found out. Obviously, Laporte is going to start next season, and we'll see exactly how good he is, because we've heard that if Laporte was fit for the whole season, maybe City would have been a lot closer. But
maybe.
Possibly, because obviously he keeps the likes of Stones and Otamendi out. You think to that game that they lost early in the season against Norwich, where Stones and Otamendi played, and it was just shocking how bad they were. So they still have to do a bit of recruitment at the back, and you'd imagine, given the fact that they have no ban as well, that they're going to go out and spend some cash.
Yeah, maybe let's wait and see if they. But their record in the transfer window isn't very good. They haven't signed brilliantly for all the money that they've invested. They haven't signed brilliantly over the last couple of years. So
I think the jury's still out on that one. Like, I mean, you look at them bringing in Rodri last year, and just on that Fernandinho point, he is the successor there. It's time for him to step up. That there is going to be a situation here where they've made signings that will probably come good or have yet to come good. Still think they need another player to kind of, not central midfielder, but in that midfield three that they play, so kind of more of an attacking tendency.
I think they need backup for Aguero as well, because Aguero is getting more injuries, and Jesus is not a like replacement for Aguero. He likes to drift into the left-hand position, and he's just not as prolific as Aguero. So, you know, do they look at getting somebody that can bang in goals as well, that if Aguero's not in the team, that, you know, they have somebody that's reliable, because we know how many chances they create, but in those games that they lost, they created plenty of chances, they just didn't take them.
is João Cancelo any good?
Yeah, like
is he world class? Is he absolutely sensational?
Well, see, he's a right back, but he's been playing left back because Kyle Walker.
They signed him. They spent that's why it's these type of signings. So they bundled Danilo and Cash, which essentially makes him one of the most expensive fullbacks in the history of the game.
Yeah, like we might see the best of Cancelo next season, and I know what you're saying about certain players that they've signed, that they haven't really made as big an impact as you'd like. Whereas, you know, some of the players down the years for City have, like, De Bruyne is still their go-to man, and that was you know, he's been doing it for the last few seasons. So, yeah, Cancelo, the fullback issue. See, the problem with the way City play is that you can have the best fullbacks, but the way they play, you know, the centre halves are still going to be exposed. He wants fullbacks that can obviously create as well, and Cancelo is probably more suited to playing that Italian style as he did in Juventus.
Yeah, and successfully. So we've gone way over time. We talked in depth yesterday about Philippe Coutinho and where he might end up. Is Coutinho worth the 20 million loan fee, so you don't get any money back on your investment, and the 200 grand a week wages? At the moment, he's being linked with Arsenal, Spurs and Leicester. Any of those three, I think, would be remarkable for any of those teams to do that deal. Maybe Leicester do it as a one-off to prove that they're now...
Brendan Rodgers and Philippe Coutinho back together.
Could he cut it in the Premier League again? And give me a legitimacy rating on any of these.
I think you could see him back in the Premier League, because his confidence is definitely not what it was when he left Liverpool to join Barcelona. He needs to get his career back on track, and it's quite sad to see a player that was so good now just kind of moping around and not really getting the chances at the big clubs that he had hoped for. So yeah, he has to get his career back on track if you think of even from his international point of view career as well. So yeah,
chances 10 out of 10 in the Premier League. 9 out of 10.
I'm going to give 8 or 9. Yeah, can I give 8.5?
8.5, 85%.
Yeah.
I like it. Phil, good stuff.
Thanks, lads.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training, I was driving home. I was actually thinking, regretting it. What have I done? Like I walked into a circus.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Another classic Deal or No Deal is in the books for you this morning. If you want to get involved in any of the conversations that we're having, you can use the WhatsApp 087 9 180 180 is the number. Coming up on OTB Sports Radio today, Leaders' Questions from noon. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is Michael Owen's Life After Football with Joe Malloy. John Giles picks his all-time Manchester United 11 at 3 o'clock. OTB Gold is Dennis Ogie-Moran from 6 o'clock, and then the live show from 7 o'clock to 10 tonight is Off the Ball. If you missed anything from this morning, you can get it all back on OTB Sports Radio on the OTB Sports app. You can just subscribe to the podcast OTB AM, and it's all free, gratis and for nothing. Tomorrow morning, the GPA's Chief Executive Paul Flynn joins us. We'll see you then. Best of luck.